The next panel, I'm afraid, I'm completely out of my depth. Cricket. I gathered today, I actually was watching the news that there are cricket matches going on in London this summer. Mihir, I know through his work as a journalist, otherwise his book on Bollywood. I have not read his books on cricket, though I know they're very well received indeed. And Robert Winder, the former literary editor of The Independent. And Allan, I'm probably the only person in the room who's not familiar with Allan as one of the great figures in British sport. 4,600 test runs, 14 test hundreds, 100 one-day international. That sounds absolutely amazing to me. So for you cricket files, I'm sure this is going to be a very exciting panel, and I'm going to just say I'm out of my depth here entirely. So Mihir, over to you.
I'm very interested to hear that Khushwant got out for 99. Clearly, he didn't ground his bat, and he was run out when he was going for that final single. It's wonderful to be here talking about cricket, and great to be with two such distinguished people. Allan, of course, a great cricketer for England, and Robert Winder, a great literary figure. Apart from writing on cricket, has written books on migration and the trustee of the museum. And might I say that I saw Allan's test debut against India in 1982, and I thought of that. I mean, John Woodcock, when he came out to bat, described him as mutton dressed like Hutton. Hutton is not quite dressed like either mutton or Hutton, but in his test debut at Lord's, he only made 9, LBW to capital there, and I thought, yes, this fellow can't bat. In the third test match, he made a century. He was run out by Ian Botham, and this so endeared him to Ian Botham that he became his lifelong friend, and then after retirement, Botham and put on a show together. So if you want to get on the right side of Allan, do something wrong to him. About it. Robert, of course, as I said, is a very distinguished writer, and of course, I will compare myself as a cricketer with Allan. I've played cricket with Robert, and he's much better than me, both as a writer and as a cricketer. Can I promote my own book? I know this is terrible, but I'm sure Khushwant Singh wouldn't mind. That I've just written a book called The 9 Ways, which is the extraordinary, I consider the extraordinary story of India's cricket. I've followed Indian cricket since I was a 5-year-old in what used to be called Bombay, and I still call it Bombay. Having been taken to a friend of my parents, we called her an auntie, whose flat overlooked the CCI, so you could see the match free. We've gone to see England play, India play England. Vijay Hazare, India's great batsman, was meant to grind England to dust. He got out injured, and everybody was astonished. And in those early years of watching cricket, I used to come back watching India play in tears and hope to score 100 to rescue India. Indian cricket has changed enormously. The World Cup, as Rachel said, is not just one cricket match, Rachel, a whole series of matches. And in fact, I'm sure as a good royalist, you would have seen the Queen sitting next to Earl Morgan, the England captain. And the look on her face suggested she was giving him advice on how to have the batting order. I'm sure Morgan, if he wants to get a knighthood, will listen to the Queen's advice on the cricket matches to come. England, of course, the favourites in the World Cup that is taking place, and of course very interesting, and I'm sure Allan will have some thoughts because he of course grew up in South Africa and then to cricket in Cape Town, that England beat South Africa, and can I raise my Indian hat and say the West Indies absolutely crumbled Pakistan. What a wonderful moment to see that. We'll have to see how the Indians perform anyway. Let's not get into it here. my side. Well, the cricket field, that's my brother thinks that catch me. Can I start with you, Allan? You made your debut against India in '82. India then was very much an outside country. Nobody could have thought of the IPL being so dominant, India being so dominant, Virat Kohli, the papers are full of Virat Kohli and so on. Can you then imagine, and you do some Indian creators like that India would become such a big power off the field and even on the field? Has it come as a surprise to you?
Not really, but I never thought in the 80s when we played at that stage. I didn't think India was always going to develop. You know, they had some very talented players, but they were going to get better. We could see that, and it was gradually the players that were coming through. But I mean, when we played India in the 80s, we thought it was easy. Their pushover, there was no problem beating India. You know, they went, the sides really beat. Well, we couldn't beat them was the West Indies, and then our biggest were to play Australia. But no, I just think India have just gone from, no one expected them to win the World Cup. We played in the semi-final against India. And
this was in '83.
'83, and everyone thought it was absolute fluke that they got there, but they played some good cricket, and they beat us in the semi-final, and then went on to play in the final against the West Indies. And that was a powerhouse side, and everyone thought there was no chance of India winning. So I think from the day then in '83, you could see India. I think that made a massive difference to Indian cricket, winning that World Cup in '83.
The very interesting story which I mentioned in my book, which I learned, is that the Indians, of course, didn't expect to win. In fact, at one stage in the match, one of the players told Sunil Gavaskar, great Indian batsman, and never mind, we'd be able to slip away early and go to Oxford Street and do some shopping. The other thing was, at the end of the match, of course, the captain went to the West Indian dressing room to congratulate them. They were, not congratulate them, commiserated them. They were absolutely crestfallen, very sad. And he saw there were lots of bottles of champagne there. So he asked the West Indian captain, do you think I could take a couple of these bottles of champagne because we don't have any champagne? It was a great Indian story. You win and you drink the opposition champagne. Khushwant Singh would have appreciated that. Robert, you have seen a lot of cricket, you've written about cricket. The change that has come about cricket, the rise of India and so on, it has been very dramatic. And if you see the attention that this World Cup, Virat Kohli is getting and so on, I mean, I wouldn't have imagined it when the 5-year-old first watched Mihir play.
Well, I think the explanation for that is in one way simple. I was at Lord's last weekend and I was sitting next to, just to mark your card, there's a new Bollywood film being made, a feature film, about that 1983 World Cup final, because it was a tremendous, as you say, birth of a nation moment. And they're doing it in great detail. They've got some very interesting performers involved. Malcolm Marshall's son is playing Malcolm Marshall. Patel's son is playing Patel. They've got a lot of children involved. It's going to be as realistic as possible. They've got special little wind machines to make sure the flags that are on the Lord's Pavilion are blowing in the right direction. Because it's such an iconic moment, they've even had to make a machine to make the correct kind of cricket boots that people wore back then, because obviously Nike don't make those anymore. Of course, making that machine is the work of a moment in any Indian market, as you know. But tremendous attention to detail and a major budget, and that's going to be a big spectacular film. And I mean, I was only watching that final this week where you were probably watching too, 1983. And I think we then thought it was a little bit of a one-off. It was a bit of wasn't a fluke. They did have good players. But as you describe in your book, by coincidence, we're reading the same book at the moment. It was a passing of the baton, but it was the end of the Gavaskar era, really, where I suppose India was around the world a little bit patronised because they didn't have fast bowlers. It was always dangerous in your era to go to India and play spinners on spinning wickets, but on the whole, when India travelled, I think most England, Australia, West Indies thought they could beat them, and often did. And that Dev team changed all that. And then ever since, it's been backed up just by the power of what you call in your book, and of course now the Indian Idols. I mean, when I was talking to Kabir Khan, the Bollywood director, I said, how many people typically would be watching an IPL match in India now between Delhi and Mumbai. And he said, well, it could be anything up to, 100 million. Well, that's cricket on a scale the rest of the world can't even envisage. And so it's not really surprising that that's now where the engine is.
I've told the India-Pakistan line, which will be on the 16th of June at Old Trafford, the capacity is 25,000 and the demand for tickets was 600,000. So you see, and I'm sure the press will build it up for a possible, tension and so on. The last time India played Pakistan in '99, we all thought there would be violence, and I was there, and the two boys squared up to each other, and then this very matronly lady came on and lectured them, and they went away saying, sorry auntie, so the maternal power of the Indian mother or the Pakistani mother should never be underestimated, even in the cricket field. Allan, the other day, I'm sure you applauded absolutely, England beat South Africa, yet you came from South Africa, and you said in your autobiography, once you played for England, you had no doubt about the loyalty to England. How easy is it to, if you like, we've had a lot of discussion about Archer, being brought in as an England fast bowler, being if you like, steamroller in to play for England. How difficult is it to change loyalties or things like that?
I think you only leave a country if there's no cricket or you can't play for that country. I always believe if you're good enough and the country is playing international cricket, you should always stay there and play, because then if you get into the side, then you are one of the best players. But unfortunately, because of apartheid, was the reason I left South Africa, and I was lucky both my parents were born in England, and so I had to wait for 4 years to qualify to play for England. So I only started at 28, so I only started really late in my
But you're only in your 30s, though.
Correct, I like it. So I had 10 years with England, but playing for England, once you play for a country, that's the country, you support. Even though the country of birth, of course you watch them, when they play anyone else, of course you try to support them. So, whenever we played, I only played against South Africa once in the World Cup semi-final, and due to that new duck with Lewis, we were saved by the rain, to be honest, and then they calculated that they had to get 24 runs with one ball or something. So when Brian McMillan walked out to bat, I said, make sure it's quite a big hit, okay? It didn't go down too well with him, I can tell you. But no, I think that's it. Once you play, the whole thing's changed a little bit now, because, Archer, I'm not quite sure why he didn't put his hat to playing for the West Indies. We know why all the South Africans have come over, because of the selection of the players. I think you've got to have 6 black players and 5. So it's nearly 60-50 now. And so basically the whole thing's turned around. So some of these players are leaving because they know their future's not in South Africa. So it's like, probably you could say that, they've got a skill and they've got to go and apply it in another country. They've got to go and earn a living. So you'll come up, but you would never see an Indian or a Pakistan coming over to England. They would always want to play for their own country, and that's what it's all about, really, playing for the country of your birth.
Although since their families come, we do have Moeen Ali and Adil Rashid and Mark Ramprakash and previous generations, just because of
the
families, the migration, not so much cricketers. Obviously you left India because there was this chap Tendulkar in your way as an opening batsman. But do you ever experience that sense of divided loyalties? I imagine you're like everyone else, where we all support different teams at different times. Really.
I think what happens is when you're brought up with certain childhood teams. So when I was growing up in India, I was a Surrey County supporter, and I became a fan of Tottenham Hotspur. So this evening is the most important day in my life. Tottenham playing the Champions League, or whatever happens, I want them to win.
Good sign, you supporter. Me too.
That's right. You see, I think you don't completely lose that. The reason I left India was actually I went to school with Singh. I was 2 years his senior. And when I first saw him bat, he was 12 and I was 14, I laughed at his forward defensive strokes. So you can see my knowledge of cricket, and he went on to play for India and did so well and so on. No, I think it's very interesting. You have looked at this, you mentioned this in this year's Wisdom. What we have seen, for instance, in this country is the change of West Indian cricket. The famous Norman Tebbit cricket test was made on the basis that when the West Indians came over here, all the people from Brixton and so on used to crowd into the Oval, and Tebbit made his famous comment about, you must support Britain. Actually, he got it wrong. There is no British team. There is England, Scotland, and Wales. And I have never met a Scotsman who supports England. Or an
Irishman.
Or an Irishman. But the West Indians don't play cricket anymore. They're playing football, not cricket.
Yeah, it's a big sort of demographic fact about England is that we expected, I suppose, or England expected, just as we had imported really a group of absolutely brilliant players like Allan and other South Africans, that there would be a generation of West Indians, and we would have our own Malcolm Marshall, we would have our own Curtly Ambrose. And that happened to a certain extent, and through the 90s there were a lot of prominent West Indian-born players here. But in fact, the West Indian population in England has become, it lives in the inner cities, it's become part of the football-loving mainstream. So they'll be all in Madrid tonight, supporting Spurs. But they won't really be very interested in the World Cup. They won't be cheering on even the West Indies, probably, the way they used to.
And I think what has happened, if they play football, even if they play in the lower leagues, they can earn more money than as cricket. And I think this has also changed in India. In India, the old Indian saying, and I always said that the Indian mother would always beat the Jewish mother in making sure that the son becomes the lawyer, the doctor, the engineer. In the days when I was growing up, the idea that you would encourage your son to become a cricketer would be enough. Prasanna, who was one of the great off spinners, he made his debut for India and then gave up cricket to become an engineer. But today, the modern cricketers who play for India, like Jasprit Bumrah and Hardik Pandya, they're encouraged by their parents because of a simple reason. And of course, this proves this Indian awareness of materialism, that if they become cricketers, they'll earn a lot more money than if they become engineers.
But can you imagine, for example, England had just gained this West Indian star bowler, Jofra Archer, and he does seem to be brilliant. He's rather fragile. I think that's why he fell out of the West Indian system. He got injured and he went around playing club cricket in England, terrorising people. He bowled 2 overs, he had 4 for 1, and be taken off again to save his back.
When he's running kids, when he breaks out, it's only stays fit for England.
But can you imagine India having a Jofra Archer? He might think, well, actually, I'll go and play for the Mumbai Indians, and I'll play for India, and that would be even better than playing for
When I was growing up, India used to be terrorised by West Indian and England fast bowlers like Fred Truman and so on. There used to be a lot of debate in India why Indians don't produce fast bowlers, and the theory advanced was this is all the result of Mahatma Gandhi's policy of non-violence. Mahatma Gandhi actually didn't like it, and mind you, I always thought he might have had a good googly, turn the ball the other way. At least some of the British found himself.
But your reason, I mean, you looked at it, you always had great batters, but on pace bowlers didn't. But I think the big turn was when they set up, Dennis Lilly came over and set up, and since then you've been getting a trickle of fast bowlers coming through that system. But you never had that system before for fast bowlers because there were the Indian spinners and they just relied on the spinners to bowl out in the subcontinent to bowl out teams, which was always the factor. But now you do have the pace bowlers.
And what other, in your time of going to India on tour and playing for England, what big changes did you see then? Not just on the cricket pitch in terms of fast bowlers coming through, but about the whole cultural change, hotels and media and fans.
Yeah, the first time we went to major hotels in the major cities, Kolkata and Delhi and Bombay, the hotels were excellent. I think 84 was the first trip there. And it was amazing. But if you went up country, of course, the hotels were really different.
Rest houses.
Yeah, those sort of rest houses and that. But you could see it changing gradually every time we went back to India. I still love going back to India, but the vast changes in the country now. I mean, you wouldn't have probably realised then in the 80s that India would be running cricket. The subcontinent would be in charge of cricket worldwide. It's incredible.
So you never suffered from Delhi belly, because there's a great story here in my book, if I may mention it, of Al Gover. This was in 1936. Played for England, great Surrey fast bowler. He had a bit of tummy trouble. The doctor said you're all right. He played in the match. The captain gave him the ball to bowl. But as he got the ball to bowl, he realised he still had tummy trouble. So as he ran in with the ball, he kept running past the stumps at the batsman, who was wondering why he was running at him. In fact, he ran past the batsman, threw the ball, and the fielder said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I have no need for the ball, I've got need for something else." And he just managed to get to the pavilion. It seems he didn't get to manage the pavilion in time, but we won't go to that one. I suppose you never had that sort of thing.
No, well, we all got it. Yeah, we got it. But the true story about him, both of them, he had it and ran off the field, but he took the ball with him. So
they had to knock on the door.
They had to knock on the door and say, "Do I have the ball back?"
It's then swung after that.
Let's take up a point that, where Rachel mentioned, she says she's not interested in cricket, and there are some here who are not interested in cricket. But cricket and sport has an impact beyond the field of play, doesn't it? If you win, it sends a feel-good factor. If England win the World Cup, a lot of people will feel good about it, don't they? I mean, your achievements on the field of play have a wider impact.
I've been to one semi-final, I've played in 2 finals, and we've lost them all. So you don't get anything for coming second. And I think the biggest thing is for England to win the World Cup. They slipped up in football. A couple of years ago, could have been 10 years ago when they won the rugby, I think. The first time the World Cup was won. So we have really struggled. So I'm hoping, because England are the hosts and they can win the World Cup, it's their best chance. I think the side they've got is a magnificent side they've got. They've got every base covered, really. But they've got to hold their nerve, and that's the big thing. On the big occasion, they've got to be, and they've got to turn it up, because if they don't, someone else is going to be. We've seen today Sri Lanka was 6 down for 50, so there's going to be upsets, I've said, but I love the format of this way, because we played in the same format is in 92, and you can lose 2 games and qualify for the semi-final, so it makes it really interesting.
What's the thing? I mean, something you've written about, I know, is that, cricket as an expression of national identity is very important in terms of soft power. Cricket, in the way you've described it, and the way we've experienced it, has done as much to put India on the world map as anything else, as much more than theatre, as much as literature, probably, and as much as philosophy, and as much as culture in general. And so it's incredibly important. And when I went to India for the 1996 World Cup, which was in India, Pakistan and Sri Lanka shared, and it was another moment of economic and commercial liftoff. It was a big money, blitzy sort of tournament. But the joke going around in that tournament was about an Indian man who'd gone to heaven, and he told he couldn't come into heaven unless he could demonstrate tremendous bravery in his life, unless he'd been very brave. And he said, "Well, I did once snatch a child from the jaws of a marauding tiger." And they said, "Well, that's quite good, but we hear that quite a lot." Have you got anything better? And he said, "Well, I was once the only Indian fan to go to an India v Pakistan match in Pakistan." They said, "Well, that really counts, you're straight in. When on earth was that?" And he said, "About 2 minutes ago." And now that's an example of animosity. But cricket can dissolve that to a certain extent. The players, through the IPL, the players of the world are becoming friends. And if that existed now, you'd be best friends with Kohli because you play for the same team, and you'd be best friends with Steve Smith because you played for the Rajasthan Royals or whoever. And that's really changed the dynamics of international cricket, I think. And of course, Pakistanis don't play.
I think talking about through the 80s, England counties took the best players. We took the best West Indies, the best Indian players, whoever was about. So we got to know those players in the 80s and 90s. Only after that where you couldn't go and play for county cricket because central contracts came in and that. So, we at Northampton had Bish and Bailey, and then after that we had Kapil Dev. Anil Kumble was the last player to get 100 wickets for in the county scene. They got 10 wickets for Northampton for us. So we've had the players come through. But I'll never forget when Kapil Dev arrived, he said, "I've come here to improve my batting, not my bowling." And we wanted him there bowling, not batting, but another passage. You know, but it does bring me back because, you know, the tour to India, we lost Mrs. Gandhi got shot, remember, and then the High Commissioner got killed in Mumbai, and you know, we all wanted to go home. We were so worried about what was going to happen. Anyway, our sort of hierarchy said we've got to stay and we've got to carry on playing, and we went out to bat. I'll never forget the first over. Someone let off a cracker in the crowd. And old Graham Fowler, opening batsman, hit the deck. He thought someone had shot at him. You can imagine how we were feeling. So we lost that game fairly easily. And then went on to Delhi. And that was when we smelt there was a bit of paper talk, but there was a bit of friction going on with Kapil Dev and Singh, which I know you're going to come on to. And what had happened was, India were just cruising along. The game was going into a draw. And I think it was after tea, they came out. I thought they were playing in a one-day game. And they got bowled out and left us about 100 runs to get it past 20 overs, which we got. And all of a sudden, we were 1-1. I mean, out of the blue, I mean, you know. And then the media climbed in, and, you know, there was a friction because you had the Gavaskar supporters and you had the Kapil Dev. So it split the crowds up, and it created a real problem for Indian cricket on that tour. But it was great for us because there was so much going off the field. They took their eye off the cricket and we beat them 2-1. So it was an excellent tour for us.
I think this whole thing, and I might add say that Robert is also chairman of the MCC committee who judges the best cricket book, which is one reason I've given the book early. Old India, you know, the way things go on in India, bringing a bit of that into England. Yeah. But Robert, this impact of sport and what it does and things like that, because it really is, you talk of Indian soft power. India now dominates cricket, and India is the only country, the only non-Western country to take charge of sport, because football is still a European thing, you know, all the other sports, the Olympics and so on. And that's a major development. I mean, Narendra Modi tweets every time India wins. Of course, Narendra Modi is an expert on facing fast bowling. He runs with. We were going to Narendra Modi's batting technique.
But it's such a special circumstance, wasn't it? I mean, the birth of the IPL, which you described and others have described, the Indian situation was so unique in that there wasn't really a clamour from other sports, and there wasn't much of a clamour from television either. There was a kind of gap in the television schedules and a gap in the sporting calendar. And the IPL was able to kind of get off the ground, not as quickly or effortlessly as people now think. It was a struggle. But to really make its presence felt on the world. And I think it has changed the way people think about India, not maybe entirely in an altogether positive way. I mean, there's shadows of corruption and match fixing, which you described a bit. And there's also the extent to which I think a lot of people love the romance of a more traditional India, and maybe are less in love with a kind of ES Ling IPL India. So, you know, you know, you win and you lose, but it's certainly a tremendous and dynamic jump forward.
I mean, somebody like Virat Kohli, who's on the cover of my book, is a very modern Indian, you know. He's in-your-face Indian. He's not somebody who's going to take things lying down, you know. He would make this point. I mean, I've never seen this before last year when India played here in the Test series. Twice that he scored centuries. He's doing business with his wife, you know. In the generation I grew up in, we didn't even know Indian cricketers had wives or who they were.
And yet the future of cricket as a world game is to a large extent now in his hands, and Allan will have a lot to say about this because he has committed himself to loving Test match cricket, 5-day cricket, which his predecessor Dhoni was not very keen on it. And if India were to turn against Test match cricket, that may be the end for it really, as an international.
Yeah, and Allan, let's talk a bit about this whole debate going on. I mean, when cricket developed, people could take time off to watch 5 days of cricket. You know, I'm told in the 50s in this country, people took their summer holidays to go and watch county cricket. People don't have the time, so cricket has to change, surely. The shorter format of the game, much as I love Test match cricket, the shorter format of the game, which, you know, a game finishes in 2 or 3 hours, that will come in inevitably, won't it?
Yeah, I think there's room for both. But, you know, I think test match cricket is the ultimate, and, you know, that's why Cody wants to play it, because people are going to look at that as a record. I mean, he wants to go and achieve and break all the records that are out there in front of us. And if he stays fit, I'm sure he'll get very close to Tendulkar, or even go past Tendulkar. But you have to have a shorter format. And I'm so surprised that England didn't stick to the IPL over 20 over instead of having 100 all over. I really, it's been so badly marketed. I can't believe they've done that. But I would have just stuck with you know, having similar to the IPL. Yeah, and I think the IPL is drawn so many other people that wouldn't even come to cricket. You know, the kids that are now going to play, that are loving the shorter game. But you know, they are now watching cricket, and you know, with the World Cup here now, it's creating a massive interest how many people are watching. I know 2 days and the last couple of days have been, it's all about football, but as soon as that goes, everyone will be back into watching what's going on with the World Cup. So to me, I think the IPL was an unbelievable thing that happened, and you see it being played down in the West Indies, you know, Australia doing it, but England didn't want to follow that route because they wanted to be something different. So I'm not too sure how that format's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, the way the IPL was brought in, Allan Modi, who now, of course, lives in this country for various reasons, that we shan't go into that, you can find a description of that in my book, that the IPL had these pom-pom girls, foreign girls. And I did ask Allan Modi, why has he got foreign girls doing pom-pom? Does it mean that Indian women are not beautiful? He said, no, our women are very beautiful. Worth having these pom-pom girls from abroad coming in. So every time a 4 or 6 is hit, out they go dancing, you know. So it provides, I think, that wonderful Indian tamasha, fun, excitement, you know, all rolled into one.
It's always a very strange moment when someone plays a brilliant shot and you get the Dance Academy of Basingstoke on the boundary. Never really understand it, but it's a spectacular product, as Allan said. I mean, I was sort of mystified by the English response, because in fact 2020 cricket was invented here, more by luck than judgment, I think, but it's been a great success here anyway. Could have easily been built on as it is, rather than change the system. I think it's one of those classic marketing errors where if you ask people who don't particularly like cricket what they think cricket should do, their obvious answer is less cricket, and just uplifting.
Can we take up a point to a certain extent from Rachel, great intellectual, great writer, that specifically in India, but certainly even in England, there's a divide, Robert, and you cross the divide between the Hearties and the Arties. And in America, for instance, you look at their great writers, all of them have written about baseball. Philip Roth, Bernard Malineux, all of them. Whereas I think in this country, and maybe I don't know, in India to an extent, you know, if you write about sport, you're in the second tier.
Yeah, I mean, C.P. Snow talked about 2 cultures, and that's endured. It's not just about sport, really. It's, you know, it's about class and other signals. But sport, yeah, is regarded as a bit of a kind of low-rent activity, not very intellectually highbrow, whatever. But I mean, that was all nailed, I think, many years ago by C.L.R. James, where he said, I've read so many distinguished histories of Victorian England by eminent scholars, and in none of them have I found a single reference to the most important man of the period, W.G. Grace, and I can no longer hold with a system of values that can't find a place in a serious historical narrative for this amazing figure. And so I think there's, across the board, there are crossovers. And I mean, cricket is actually very productive of literature. I mean, every year wisdom proves that. Cricketers tend to be, because of the class basis of the game here, also readers, luckily for you. And so I think the threads go across that people are allowed to not like cricket just as they're allowed to not like ballet or motor racing.
I didn't think you wanted to balance Allan, did you? But one thing, you played cricket at, of course, the highest level. I once asked Kapil there when he took that great catch in 1983 to dismiss Richards, which of course was the turning point of the match in India won. I said, what were you thinking? He said, I wasn't thinking anything, it was reflex. What happens when you're playing, when you're facing a fast bowler or whoever, or you're playing a shot, and I know you occasionally bowl, what goes through your mind? Does anything go through your mind, or is it blank?
No, definitely not blank. I mean, first of all, you've got the threat of this quick bowler running in to try and knock your head off, and you've got to survive. But when you're playing against sort of quicker bowlers, you have to be looking to what's the score runs, because if you stay at the crease, he's going to get you out, or the other one bowler's going to get you out. And those days I had 4. But when you're playing against spinners or other, mediums, you're always looking where to score runs. As a batter, I understand this as a batter. So of course it's not about survival. It is about how we're going to get the better of the bowler. We've got to show the bowler that, hey, I'm in charge. That's how the great players, Kapil Dev, Viv Richards, all the great batsmen. You look at Kohli now. Kohli's right in the bowler's face, saying, "Hey, I'm boss here. I'm in charge." And that's how he's affecting some of these people. The bowlers, and the bowlers know. They start thinking twice about, where to bowl to him and that type of thing. So yes, you have to be thinking what you're going to be doing. You don't go there totally blank.
It's very interesting now, because you've put your finger on something which is, from the outside, cricket looks like a team sport, 11 against 11, but when you're batting, it's 1 against 11. And when you're batting against Australia, some of the things they're saying aren't that friendly, famously. And so, did you feel it to be like that? It's a very individual sport when you're the one either batting.
Yeah, but I think when you're out there, of course, you're playing for the team, because if you do well, then the team are going to do well. So,
did Geoffrey Boycott think that?
No. That's why both of them kept running him out. So, I think that's the way. I think people, yes, as you were saying, when you're there on your own, you surviving, you've got to be scoring runs, you've got to take take the responsibility on that. So, and then, as you say, when you played against Australia, in those days, the verbal sort of banter you used to get from them was quite a lot. But it was only from them, it was from the crowd.
What was it? Can you remember what?
Well, Dennis Lilly I was playing and missing, and eventually he came up to me and he has this sort of, you remember he used to flick his, and then he just flicked this sort of sweat into my face like that. I could taste the sort of rum he had been drinking the night before. And he said to me, "Mate, do me a favour." I said, "What's your problem?" He said, "Hold the bat still and I'll aim it." Not in those words. So, there's ways and means you can get. And I think sledging only comes in to unruffle or get someone really going, and then you'll play a bad shot. But you're the great players at Ken Dulkers and Meerdads and Borders and Wars, if you try to sledge them, they were in for the day, because they loved it. And they would stay there and bat throughout the whole day. They didn't want to get out.
I've heard a lot of Meerdad stories, some of which I can't print. But it's one story I just told many years ago was about Vijay Manjrekar, a great Indian batsman. He was rather dark in skin colour. Let's admit, Indians have a certain skin colour problem, we all know about that. And somebody came up to him and said, "Oh, you must have been born when the West Indians were in India." And Manjrekar turned to this guy who was a bit fairer and said, "Well, you must have been born when the very much worse New Zealand team were here." Since we are in a festival in honour of the great Khushwant Singh, I hope you'll allow me to just refer a bit in my book. This is about the other Sikh, Bishan Singh Bedi, a great spinner. In 1990, the first time Sachin Tendulkar came here, Bishan Bedi was the manager of the Indian team. He started proceedings off by saying, "I'm getting so many letters from English women wanting to date Sachin Tendulkar," whether he was getting letters or not, I do not know, but that got the tabloid press going. But anyway, Bishan, during the tour it came out that Sunil Gavaskar had turned down the NCC membership because he was upset by the way the NCC had treated him, and Bishan came into the press box and denounced him on behalf of the entire Indian community in this country. How he could do that, I don't know. But later on, I was asked by the Sunday Times to write an article. That was the first time that both cricket teams had managers. England had Keith Fletcher, India had Vishen Bailey. I wrote the article based on talking to him where he made some critical comments, and the result of that was that Vishen got very upset during the Old Trafford test. He had come to the press box looking for me and told journalists he wanted to find the Bengali and he wanted to shove an umbrella up his arse. That season, I had published my history of Indian cricket and had a forward by Singh. I presented it to Bailey, inscribing on the title page, Vishen with fond memories of his great cricket deeds. At the Oval Test match, he came to the press box and chucked the book at me. He did not want it. I opened at the title page and he had crossed out my thanks and instead scrawled this handwritten message just above my name. You've got as journalist, shove it up your filthy bum and enjoy being the worst historian, this was underlined ever. You are a CCC of the highest order, nay, owner. Try carrying this coat, you swine. When I showed it to Gavaskar, he asked me if he could borrow the book to show his fellow commentators. They were amused but also incredulous that a manager of an international team could write this. I discovered later that Bailey felt his remarks to me in Manchester were off the record, although he had not said right. Khushwant Singh would have enjoyed that. But I mean, this shows the sort of, if you like, the emotion, the anger, the tension that sport and cricket can produce. We'll see this evening in football and so on. But some of it can be very, very destructive. But some of it is also, I think, not particularly this Bailey one, some of it is quite good as well, because it can exercise.
Well, I think it's an interesting point about it, maybe for you to say, which is that because of the tremendous individual pride that is at stake, as evidenced by that story, it lends itself to hero worship, and that's something we see a lot of in the IPL. Those great cricketers of India today, they're a bit like Hollywood stars, and indeed they use the whole kind of Bollywood vocabulary and imagery to help sell it. And I mean, is that a big thing? I mean, what you experienced there, of course, is also just the sort of perils of the press box. There's a famous example, I know you'll know, Martin Johnson, who used to write for The Independent, and he once had a series of jokes. He was joking about Andrew Caddick, the English fellow, having sticking out ears. And one day Caddick got furious with him on a tour of the West Indies and went up to the press box and kind of shook him by the shoulders and said, you have to apologise. So the next day he wrote in the paper that he had been asked to apologise, and he had to say he was terribly sorry that Andrew Caddick had sticking out ears.
Right. Any other points two of you would like to make about cricket and how you see it? I mean, let's face it, internationally, football is the greatest game, and cricket will never take over from football. But you're confident about cricket's long-term future?
Yes, it is a big worry about Test cricket because, in England, Test cricket will be followed forever. I can't see that changing, but in other countries, it's very poor. I mean, attendance in Australia, when you have the big sides come, you'll get people watching, but the rest of the world, the attendance is really, really bad.
It's very interesting. When I was growing up in India, you had to buy what was called a season ticket, a ticket for all 5 days, otherwise you couldn't get in. And I'm sorry, I don't want to sort of say that we were very well off. We had servants, like that sort of needs to have. And I remember once my father sending a servant to buy a ticket. And then he came back and said he couldn't get one, but the rupee notes he gave back to my father were not the same that my father had given him. So he would think that the servant had actually sold the ticket, someone made a little profit. Nowadays, hardly anyone does that. But that's my question. What about you, Robert? Do you worry? I mean, cricket used to be the #1 sport in the world at one stage. It is no longer, nobody can take close to football. Do you worry about cricket?
Not really. I think these things, it's easy to be apocalyptic about it. I mean, the point about Test cricket is clear and obvious. I mean, Allan's experienced it. There's nothing so dismaying as an empty stadium with a Test match going on in a way. And so there is no option but to create. I mean, I think the solution to that actually is not so much marketing as just to get children playing it. I mean, my sons go play at clubs around London. And they do get 200 or 300 people on a Friday night going down there to play when England have a good team. And so that's the real solution. And it may depend on India in the end, because it's the great Indian diaspora that may keep cricket alive here, both in crowds and in terms of players. And then that may be true in other parts of the world too. We can see Indian and Pakistani origin people coming through in Australia and New Zealand. They're playing in America, they're starting to play elsewhere in the world. And so it may be that India is at the moment both the engine and the saviour, but then it will take on a different shape and form than it did in the era we grew up in. But then that was different from when it first grew up in England, when it was primarily a gambling contest, for 18th century gents in top hats.
Well, I share your confidence. It's interesting that in this Brexit debate, Rees-Mogg hasn't said that the Indian love for cricket shows the civilizing influence, because everybody who lives in India always says, how's that? Even if they don't speak a word of English. And that shows the great power, the great good, because Rees-Mogg has said the empire did pretty good, and obviously the goodness shows in Sachin Tendulkar playing a cover drive better than any Englishman. That is the civilizing influence.
I think you should put him in a pair of pads and send him out to bat against
Absolutely, yes. I think you'd be a very good defensive batsman here. Now I think we'll open it up, and it's not these two great experts here. Yes.
Hi, my question is for Allan. Allan, you played at a time when some of the finest all-rounders played: Imran, Kapil, Bose, and Hadley. Who was the best according to you?
Botham is not here, it's all right.
I played against them all, and probably it was a little bit different. I thought Richard Hadley was probably one of the better bowlers out of all of them, but wasn't that good a batsman. I mean, the thing with an all-rounder is that they've got two bows, and if they fail with one, they can do with the other one, and I think that's what makes a good all-rounder. So if he fails with the ball, he'll get runs. And if I look at them, I played a lot with Ian Botham, and he had an amazing record of turning the games. I think an all-rounder is one who's going to be looked at. If you take Sobers, they say, you speak to everyone, they say Sobers was the greatest, okay? My era, the guy who probably turned games around more than ever, probably Ian Botham, won games on his own. But if you take a guy like Clark Callis, right, who has the best record out of all of them, but no one even talks about him as being the greatest all-rounder. Because what he didn't do, he didn't come in and bowl sides out and turn games out like Hadley would have done, or Kapil there, or Imran Khan would have come in and bowled a magic spell and get 6-4 and then go and score some runs. So to me, out of that, they were all up there. Imran, you missed a guy like Mike Proctor I played with. I mean, that guy was amazing cricketer. And pity we didn't see enough of him. But out of that lot, I'd probably be a little bit biased and probably say Ian, because I played with him and I saw him turn games around, and that's what to me was a great all-rounder.
But was Vivian Richards the best batsman?
Easily, yeah. There are two Richardses, Barry Richards and Bill Richards. And I've got to say, I always putting people in that I played against. So that's why I'm not going to be talking about people that I haven't played against.
He didn't have to face his own bowlers, did he? Richardson was an advantage.
He never really got runs against the Barbadian attack when they played it.
Funny that.
Yeah, I know. But he never wore a helmet.
Rachel.
No disrespect to cricket, of course, because I've actually really perhaps been with my family household into this, but in the last 50 minutes I've not heard a woman's name being mentioned. And for me, cricket was growing up, being made to be the wicket keeper because the boys wouldn't do it, making cakes for hot tea time, packing picnics for husbands going off to play cricket, hearing that test match theme tune going off and knowing, that was my part of the evening being ended. It was very much a sort of man's world, but not a sort of hostile world in any way. And I wonder if perhaps that's one of the things the IPL is doing, is it's really creating more of a female audience perhaps for cricket, and that I know there are many women's cricket teams, but it's really this gender divide that I grew up with that I think made cricket seem such an alien world is changing, and perhaps that will increase the audience.
Yeah, I think that is happening, Robert. I mean, you see Wisden and elsewhere. There's a lot more talk about women's cricket. And a couple of years ago, England played India, and the women's final, and there was a huge crowd, and England just at the last minute turned the match around.
It was one of the best matches ever at Lord's. It was famous, and the leading women heroes of that team were all kind of wisdom cricketers of the year and much feted. That is a new thing. I mean, traditionally it was a man's game, and now that's changing, obviously for the better. Boys and girls play at a young age. As I say, I think it's playing it that creates the audience for it in later years. And so the audience is growing, as it is for football. I mean, the Women's World Cup football this summer is going to...
And also women's commentators are coming in.
Yes. A lot of that is decisions being taken to be more open, and they're obviously good decisions. And so that miserable childhood, having to avoid making sandwiches or accept that kind of junior role, luckily I think that's coming to an end, isn't it?
There's a question that this one,
Mihir, this is to you. This is regarding the title of your two books. The first one which came in 2002, and the other one which has come just now. In fact, I was going to buy it before I came here.
well, I hope you still buy it.
I'll still buy it, provided you give me a complimentary copy. The question is, why did you choose to have similar titles of the books?
No, this one is called Nine Waves. I mean, that's the first one.
The history of Indian cricket.
Yeah.
It is in both the books that probably highlights the title more than the...
Yeah, but this one, I mean, this one takes the story right up to modern age. What I did was I broke up the Indian story from 1932 when India made their test debut to today, dividing it into 9 waves, not trying to compare it to the Indira Gandhi or the Modi waves, but you know, that different generations, how they play, and in the context of the wider, the first wave in 32 to 52 is when India was mostly not a free country, colonial country and so on, and then the various other waves, the Dhoni wave and so on, just to illustrate how changes have come in wider society and cricket, which I hadn't done so much in the first.
And also, the present keeps changing the past, doesn't it? As Tia said, you know, and the past we have to constantly readjust our sense of the past. So in a way, your previous book, good though it was, is up to date.
Absolutely. Gentleman here, you,
perhaps talking really about trying to make cricket more international. The International Cricket Council is trying to...
You're talking of cricket being more international, yes?
Very powerful comment. The ICC is trying to bring cricket across. If you look at the lower levels, you are seeing games between, say, Germany and Sweden and Italy and France. And Afghanistan is an example where 10 years ago they were nowhere, and now they've come through. Do you think that is a way of really making cricket a bit broader than beyond just the former parts of the region?
What do you think?
Yeah, I think the ICC have done a good job. You know, they're getting it out to all countries, which is fantastic. Now, there's been quite a lot of criticism from the sides that, like Holland and Ireland and some of the sides that didn't qualify. But I think when you have a World Cup, it's got to be your 10 best sides. Your best sides must be playing in it. And that's what makes it really, really good. The other sides, they're going to be playing Test cricket because they'll get their games and you know, they'll develop. But what the ICC has done a great job, and the MCC are also doing a great job, because I know Mike Gaffing's involved in that, going to all been over to China and you know, to the Far East and that, and promoting cricket. So yes, I think they're doing a good job.
I think it just takes time too, and a lot of the, if you look at the kind of great German cricket teams of the last few years, they tend to be called Omar Mohammed, Mihir Bose. And so it's going to take time that, and it's very hard to recreate the kind of tradition that exists in the Commonwealth countries where cricket lived. But it's changed there too, because in the early years of Australian cricket or South African cricket, it was, you know, Colonel Carruthers from Guildford, or West Indian cricket even, and in each occasion that's changed.
But Robert, it's an interesting thought that if Angela Merkel knew about cricket, Theresa May, who loved Jeffrey Boycott, would probably got a deal, you know, on talking about Jeffrey Boycott knowing the off stump. Angela Merkel would have understood, you know.
Theresa May was actually at the first match against South Africa.
In fact, I was just wondering that since Trump has made call for a diplomatic platform, why why don't we have something like a Modi Way, a match with Modi and Imran Khan, which will solve the diplomatic problem, and also produce some good bowlers which you're talking about, which you can't produce.
Yes, but of course, Imran Khan has become Prime Minister of India. I mean, I can't imagine an ex-cricketer becoming Prime Minister of India.
No, I'd just like to ask about Pakistan's isolation in the cricket world. You know, nobody plays in Pakistan. Pakistani cricketers can't play in the IPL. You comment about that?
I must say, what has happened with Pakistan is very sad, and what I find very disturbing in India particularly. I mean, even in the past, when India and Pakistan had their problems, cricket went on. The two boards, Pakistani board and the Indian board, often combined to defeat England. They love doing that, you know, getting World Cups and so on. But I think now the tension is so great that, you know, on Indian television, if you even go, you know, get on and say India should play Pakistan, you're denounced as a traitor and things like that. I think that is a very, very worrying sign, and really some way should be found of getting Pakistan back in the cricket part.
Well, probably here is the place where Pakistan should play more, because they'd have crowds, they'd have support, they could play India here. They can't really play each other in other ways. I mean, Pakistan is a great cricket power, so it is obviously sad. I mean, you all know, Allan went there many times. It was always a very treacherous place and a difficult place to play. The joke in the press boxes back then was kind of Islamabad, Faisalabad, England bad. But it wasn't really true. It was just that Pakistan was a mystery then, and it's even more of a mystery now. I mean, one quite appealing thing about this is when Pakistan do come to England, it's the only team in the world where we don't know their players. We haven't seen them in county cricket. They're not in the IPL. We haven't seen them much on the international stage. Turns out they're pretty brilliant. So it's a sad thing. I don't know. There's no simple answer, is there?
I think we've time for one more question. Very quickly.
Yes. A brief comment, because Robertson mentioned about India and Pakistan. So I'm also the international president of World Punjabi Organization. We've been doing a lot of work for 20 years. But now what you say is right. And we've seen people like Navjot Sidhu, somebody who talks about people-to-people contact is seen as a traitor thing. But because things have gone so bad at the border front, although we all like the soft skills and the people-to-people contact in culture and this and that, but the atmosphere is not right. The latest one is banning of even the aircrafts overflying the airspace, and our travel time to London has increased by 3 years. So there's a lot of issues. So let's hope there will be better environment for engagement.
You see on the 16th when India play Pakistan, the two cricketers will be talking in languages like Urdu and Hindi and so on, and understand each other perfectly, and actually they enjoy doing that, and outfoxing the English when they play. You know, that will happen. Shows the cultural unity that's there. Well, we will stop now. Thank you very much, and I must thank the